Well, welcome back to the Feel Young, Live Long Health Summit. I have with me in this session Joy Pedersen, who is an individual who has done many things relative to her spiritual growth. And I'm sure that we're going to learn a whole lot about Joy and the work that she does. So, Joy, the first question that we are wanting to know some things about is what is the science of spirit and how does that relate to this idea that God has a goal for us?
The one thing I've learned over the years is how really God is everything that exists. And it's the conscious awareness of that existence that exists within all that is that ties everyone together. The idea of what God's plan for us is that over time, God has truly evolved as we all continue to evolve. And now what exists is the highest form of God. So if you consider all that is God, God consciousness, but there are elements to that of dark to light, as is
Okay.
expressed in this field. And there's the highest form of God that knows all that is, has learned all that is, and knows what is the best for all. And by tapping into that, by understanding a methodology and a safety zone and an ability to connect with that highest form of God, you can ask, what is for my highest and best good for X, Y, or Z? It doesn't matter. It can be a small or large request because God only has the highest and best in mind for you and all. So we'll guide you accordingly. And if you follow what is for your highest and best, it's not always that results are guaranteed because life is still organic and you're involved with others, but it's the best path known at that time. So you have a better shot at creating the results that will be for your highest and best good, that won't create karma, and you'll have more ease.
So I'm going to back up just a bit. So this when I think about the science of spirit, I think of all of our religions, all of our philosophies, um, and those tie into our beliefs as well, which, our beliefs are a mental component. So, what you have just described really is this concept of God that we have being all that is. And then our ability to tap into that. So, how are these, shall we say, different philosophies, religions, or whatever? How do they fit into this science? We call it a science, and I don't, it's I'm calling it that because the oldest religion that we're aware of on this planet is Hinduism, and they have this multiplicity of gods.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that fits in with what you just talked about in terms of God is all forms and is evolving and so on and so forth. And I'm not sure I pronounce this correctly, but the Bhagavad Gita,
Yeah.
which is their sacred text or whatever, has all these stories of the different forms that God has taken and so on and so forth. And so tell us all of that to say, um, does in your conversations with God, has God discussed this science aspect of it? Looking at it from the outside. I mean, science is, I think of science as um, observation, experimentation, those kinds of things, and then coming up with a theory of how things work, which is what I think our religions are, theories of how things work in the world. Um, so have you had any sense of that at all? I'm
I
just curious.
think the freebie that I was offering speaks to that because it's discussing God's origins of his own discovery of
I
himself that
love it. Okay. Yeah.
and it was like, oh, I'm here. Where am I? Who am I? What am I? And then from there, it was a further discovery of what can I learn, what can I do. And when he was telling me that, he says the first thing I learned how to do is create a dot. Well, we've gotten a lot farther along since then, and there's a lot of dots out there that have been created, a lot of beings that have been created, all to learn himself.
And that is so true for each and every one of us. That is exactly what we're up to. I love it because this idea that you have, that God has a plan or a goal for each of us, I believe that's true. I know that in my own personal path, there are many, shall we say, what I thought were going to be diversions from my real life weren't.
Mm.
I never thought I would become a minister. I never thought I would become a spiritual coach of kinds and so on. And I know that's true. Tell us about your story. How did you get to this spiritual arena?
I started out in it really. As a child, I knew I was going to be here for the end of the world as I knew it. I wasn't going to die this lifetime, and this was going to be my last lifetime. So I started out that way.
Wow.
But then went for a job working in Hollywood. I was at Paramount, and people were calling me to find out how to get their job, how to break into Paramount. And I noticed that everyone was struggling. They had been there longer than me. Some of them hadn't made friends yet. And I was curious about what set me apart. And I didn't know why it should have been easier for me because I'm from New Jersey originally and had no connections in that town any more than anyone else or any background in the industry more than anyone else. So I learned about the law of attraction.
Oh,
And the concept of the law of attraction is what you think about comes about, basically. I started teaching techniques about the law of attraction and realized that everyone was really good at demonstrating the results that they were looking for in some areas and not in others, including myself. So I said, there's got to be something within them that's blocking them. And I looked for a solution. I was introduced to a spiritual healing process at that time and learned about the subconscious being the part of you that's your programming and the part of you that it will manifest the results you're looking for. So if you're not congruent in your conscious mind about what you want to create, and your subconscious wants something else or doesn't believe you can have what it wants or what you want, you won't get the results that you want, or you'll struggle to get them. It won't be easy. So the spiritual healing process, what that does is identify the hidden causes of the challenges within the subconscious, release them gently, and then you don't have that block or barrier that will hinder the results that you want. So if you want to cross the street and then you're standing there and going, oh my God, what if I get hit by a car? What's the right time to walk across the street? How many minutes do I really have? And then you stand there and you miss the light. There's,
exactly.
and that's exactly what happens with 9 million things you're trying to create in life. There's that hesitancy in the back. If there's been a problem from the past that someone hasn't been able to let go of. And then that becomes their programming and colors the results that they're seeking.
Oh my goodness, that is all so true. It is all so true. So how does um why and how maybe does God's plan for us integrate with and fit with our overall health?
Well,
See,
first of
I think it's very important. I think it's like the number one thing.
yeah. Well, I don't think people realize because they're so trained in this field to do things in the physical or to be thinking. And thinking often gets in the way because when you use the intellectual mind, you're only limited by what you've been taught so far. When you tap into God, which you access through your heart, you're going into like the mainframe computer, accessing all there is. And when you also work with God directly in what it is that you want to create, and of course, if it's for your highest and best good, it makes even more sense that it comes to you easier because you're congruent. You're having that power behind what you want to create. You're not limited in any perspective other than your own limiting thoughts that you have within, your beliefs, your fears, which will stop anything. And when you want to have any kind of physical result, including physical health, you want to clear everything on the spiritual because everything is connected. But especially when you want to manifest a result, you shift it in the spiritual first, and it happens more effortlessly in the physical. Most people have been trained to work hard and they effort rather than go work with God, clear it up in the non-physical, and then manifest it more effortlessly with the help and the congruence within.
Absolutely. And um, do you have any strategies that that people can put in place that will help them to recognize what God's plan is for them?
If they're surrendered to God, which is a bone of contention for many people, because the idea of surrender often means giving up, giving in, but it's really when it's surrendering to God, it's allowing the greatest part of God to work through you, empower the results that you're seeking. And when you are able to surrender effectively, you have more ease and you are in flow. It's like being on the conveyor belt of life. Everything becomes effortless. If
Well,
you're struggling, it's the opposite. You know you're holding on to something, you're blocking God.
exactly. That's just what I was going to comment on. That is exactly what you're talking about. If we have these blocks that we're unaware of, we remove those. It's allowing God's energy then to move, to actually flow through us and move. I
Right.
love it. Okay, great. Are there some common um, in your work? Have you found there are some common blocks or common misbeliefs that people have that are there any specific ones? I mean, I know that in my own journey, one of my big blocks had to do with my not understanding the law of attraction that you mentioned and its relationship to money.
Mm.
And a lot of people don't think about money as being a spiritual thing. That's, which to me, I did uh, my background's in English and speech and drama. So words are important. And I usually go to the etymology of the word. How did the word evolve? Where did
Mhm.
it start? That kind of thing. And so I got a real interesting realization around the word money. But have you found some false beliefs that are blocking people? Any, common ones? What are some common?
Well, one of the, you were talking earlier about religion. Religion often has blocked people from trusting God, believing in God, accepting God, because some religions have taught he's a punishing God, um, that you can only go through someone else to access God. You need a religious person in as a vehicle to get to God. God's within everyone, equal opportunity, and there's nothing to fear about God. Man, people have placed judgment and have created an image of God as being a punishing God to some. Not everyone has that view, but if you're afraid of God, which I find many people are afraid of God, they're afraid of going to God. They Some feel guilty because they know they haven't been perfect. Nobody is, and everyone's made mistakes. So they think God's going to punish them, or God's going to make them do something that they don't want to do, or they don't really trust that He's got the best interest in mind because it's going to be God's way versus theirs. And some people, and a lot of beings really, have a fear of, if they go back to God, they're going to lose their personality. God's going to take away what they have, or that they won't be able to have what they want. Now, God isn't about taking away, He's about supporting, but the perceptions about God, or the misperceptions about God, have often blocked people from being able to go to the well and receive that abundance of flow that's possible for them, because they're afraid of going to that well. What's going to come out of that well? Is there a monster that's going to come out of that well? Who's going to eat me up? It's like, it's crazy, but that's what goes on in the subconscious without you realizing it. And somebody consciously could tell you, oh yeah, I believe in God, I think God's great, or whatever, and I pray to God all the time. But many people don't have the answers to their prayers because of the blocks they placed before the receiving of their desires, because of that internal byproduct of a lot of the old teachings.
Yes, yes. Oh, wow, that is so good to know. I mean, and that's important too, because if we want that abundant life, we need to have abundant health. And if there are some, you know, lots of people believe that God is the only element, the only thing that can heal. And yet, as you mentioned, God's within us. And so we just have to tap into that and allow it to flow and heal us.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have? No, I know that you have a freebie
Yes.
for all of the attendants. Can you tell us uh, a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, it does speak to what I mentioned before about the origins of God and really how to understand and work with God. So it's God consciousness and how that impacts you. And it's a real non religious approach to being able to connect and understand how to navigate life with more ease.
Okay. And how can people contact you if they want to find out other things that you have available?
Probably the best way is through my website, joypedersen.com.
Okay, great. And I know that you're offering the All Access Pass members a kind of mini training or experience. We're calling it the bonus video, where you're actually going to teach them something. So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I asked God actually what to provide. And He said He wants your audience specifically needs the help of learning to trust Him. And unless you can trust Him implicitly, You can't get the results that you want with ease. You can't get the money you want with ease. You have anything with ease. You can't have peace, the joy, the abundance, that all is available. So he wants me to share more about that and help people heal from that lack of trust so they can connect with him better and he can serve them better.
Okay, great. And one last question before I thank you for your enormous wisdom and sharing it with everybody. And that is there a product or a service that you're currently promoting in your business? And give us the name of your business.
It's called Express Success. And I work as a spiritual healer and coach. And what I do is I work with a lot of business people and others, but I mean, often with business people, what I'm also doing is not only healing the owner of the business, but their families, their personal lives, and their businesses. I identify with what is within the subconscious, what is blocking them, and then through spiritual healing, releasing that. I surrender everything to God, and God is really working through me in those sessions. And I do them both privately, and I do a monthly group program where I also, because I channel God, there's a monthly healing and teaching from God on a particular subject.
Well, you have a Facebook page and a Facebook group, I understand, as well.
From Heaven is the Facebook group, and yes, I do have a Facebook page, Dr. Joy Pedersen.
So our attendees may want to go there and check those things out as well. Joy, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for being able to articulate these difficult concepts to people. And thank you for learning how to be one with God, as is the goal for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.